100-year-old portrait found, and scholars turn pale when they zoom in on the eyes. The morning rain tapped against the tall windows of the Massachusetts Historical Museum as curator Linda Chen carefully unwrapped the package on her examination table. The donor, an elderly woman named Patricia, sat nearby in a wheelchair, her granddaughter standing protectively beside her. "This photograph has been in our family for generations," Patricia said, her voice thin but clear. "My grandmother kept it in a special frame on the mantel. She'd tell us stories about the people in it, the Morrison family, our ancestors from the 1890s. Linda lifted the photograph from its wrapping. The image, mounted on heavy cardboard backing typical of the era, showed remarkable preservation. 6 people posed in a Victorian garden, formal, solemn, frozen in time. The sepia tones had faded only slightly, and the details remained sharp. "It's beautiful," Linda said, examining the image through a magnifying glass. "The clothing, the garden setting, the composition. This is a wonderful example of 1890s family portraiture." Patricia leaned forward slightly. "My mother always said there was something special about that photo. Something important, but she never explained what she meant. She'd just look at it with this expression like she was keeping a secret." Linda made notes in her catalog system. "Do you know anything about the people in the photograph? Names? Occupations?" Patricia's granddaughter pulled out a folder. "The photo is dated 1895, taken in Worcester, Massachusetts. That's Henry Morrison and his wife Eleanor. The 4 children are Thomas, William, Margaret, and little Clara." Linda studied each face carefully. The father, Henry, sat centrally with the bearing of a man accustomed to authority. Eleanor beside him appeared elegant but reserved. The 4 children ranged in age from perhaps 6 to 14, 2 boys standing behind their parents, 2 girls seated in front. "Oh, but your family has quite a legacy," Linda said. "We'll digitize this for our archives, which will help preserve it. The high-resolution scans will capture details invisible to the naked eye." "That's exactly what I hoped," Patricia said quietly. "My mother always said the truth was in the details. Maybe now someone will finally see what she meant." Linda smiled, assuming the comment was simply nostalgia. She had no idea that within 48 hours, those digitized details would reveal a secret the Morrison family had protected for more than a century. A secret hidden in plain sight, waiting for modern technology to bring it into focus. She carefully logged the photograph into the museum's system, assigning it a catalog number and scheduling it for digitization. Outside, rain continued falling on Boston streets where the Morrison story had begun long ago. Marcus Webb adjusted the museum's high-resolution scanner, preparing for another routine day. The equipment could capture images at 2400 dpi, resolution that revealed details completely invisible in original prints. "Got a nice family portrait from the 1890s, his assistant Jamie said, placing the Morrison photograph on the scanner bed. "Curator wants full documentation, close-ups of faces, clothing details, background elements." Marcus initiated the scan. The machine's light moved slowly across the image, capturing microscopic details. Minutes later, the digital file appeared on his monitor, a massive image containing millions of pixels. "Beautiful clarity," Marcus said, zooming into various sections. "The fabric texture on the mother's dress is incredible. You can see individual threads in the lace." Jamie leaned over his shoulder as he examined each family member. The father's stern expression, the mother's gentle sadness, the children's forced stillness, all rendered in extraordinary detail. Then Marcus zoomed into the oldest boy's face. He stopped. "Jamie, look at this." The boy stood at the left, perhaps 13 or 14, wearing a formal jacket. His face was serious, jaw set with determination. But his eyes— "Is that?" Jamie began. "Heterochromia," Marcus finished. "Complete heterochromia. His right eye is dark brown, almost black. His left eye is blue-gray, completely different." They stared at the screen. The condition was unmistakable under magnification. The contrast between the 2 eyes was striking, one dark and warm, one light and cool. "That's pretty distinctive," Jamie said slowly. "You'd think the family would have mentioned it in records." Marcus pulled up the documentation Patricia had provided. He scanned through birth records, census data, family correspondence. Every document described Thomas Morrison with standard characteristics: brown hair, brown eyes, average height. Nothing mentioned heterochromia. "Maybe the records are about a different child," Jamie suggested. But Marcus zoomed out to see the full family. The positioning, ages, clothing, everything matched. This was definitely Thomas Morrison. eldest child of Henry and Eleanor Morrison. He zoomed into the other children's faces. William, brown eyes. Margaret, brown eyes. Clara, brown eyes, all matching their documented descriptions. Only Thomas had this distinctive, impossible-to-miss characteristic that appeared nowhere in any official record. "This doesn't make sense," Marcus said. "Heterochromia isn't something you forget to mention. It's obvious. So why isn't it documented?" Jamie photographed the screen. "We should show this to Linda. And Dr. Rashid. She specializes in genealogical mysteries." Marcus saved the files, marking Thomas's face with special notation. As he did, he noticed Eleanor Morrison's expression. Where he expected Victorian maternal pride, he saw tension, tightness around her eyes, her jaw, and her hand, resting on Thomas's shoulder, gripped too tight. The fabric beneath her fingers showed compression. She was holding him like she feared he might disappear. Dr. Sarah Rashid spread documents across her office desk while Marcus and Linda watched. As the museum's consulting genealogist, she had spent 3 days investigating the Morrison family records, and her expression reflected bewilderment. "This is one of the strangest cases I've encountered," she said, pointing to a birth certificate. Thomas Morrison, born March 15, 1881, Worcester, Massachusetts. Parents, Henry and Eleanor Morrison. Physical description from school records, age 14, brown hair, brown eyes, 5 feet 6 inches. No mention of heterochromia. She pulled up the high-resolution scan on her laptop. But there it is, clear as day, complete heterochromia, probably present from birth. It's not something that develops later or disappears. He would have had this his entire life. Linda leaned forward. Could the records be wrong? Clerical error? Not consistently wrong across multiple sources, Dr. Rashid replied. Look, marriage license from 1905, eyes brown. Military registration 1917, eyes brown. Passport application 1920, eyes brown. Every single official document describes him as having brown eyes. Marcus pulled up additional scans. I've checked for manipulation or damage. This isn't deterioration. The heterochromia is real, captured in the original photograph. Dr. Rashid opened another file. Eleanor Morrison's private correspondence, letters to her sister between 1890 and 1900. She mentions her children frequently. Listen to this, written in 1896. Thomas grows more like his father every day. The same dark eyes, the same serious temperament. Dark eyes, Linda repeated. Singular, not one dark eye and one light eye. Exactly. Dr. Rashid pulled out a newspaper clipping. Worcester Daily Times, June 1895, months after this photo. Society column mentioning the Morrison family. The Morrison boys, Thomas and William, both bearing their father's dark coloring. Again, no mention of anything unusual. She sat back. Either every person who documented Thomas Morrison's appearance for 40 years somehow failed to notice his heterochromia, essentially impossible, or the boy in this photograph isn't Thomas Morrison, at least not the biological child of Henry and Eleanor. The statement hung in the air. You're suggesting adoption? Linda asked. Informally, yes. Formal adoption barely existed in the 1890s. But families sometimes took in children. Orphaned relatives, children of deceased friends, sometimes more complicated circumstances. Dr. Rashid pulled up census records. The 1880 census shows Henry and Eleanor newly married, no children. The 1890 census shows 4 children, ages 9, 7, 5, and 3. Thomas would have been 9. Marcus did the math. So Thomas appears in their household around 1881, the same year he's supposedly born to them. Right, and every record after treats him as their biological son. Birth certificate filed retroactively, school records accepting the family's word. Dr. Rashid looked at the photograph again. The heterochromia was distinctive, memorable. So either they hid him completely, which newspaper mentions disprove, or people knew. The community knew Thomas wasn't biologically theirs, but agreed to keep the secret. The question is why, Linda said quietly. Why was this child's true origin so important to hide? Dr. Rashid returned a week later with new findings. She spread census records across the conference table where Marcus and Linda waited. I went back further, she said, looking for children with heterochromia in Massachusetts around 1880 to 1882. Census takers sometimes noted unusual features in personal observations. She pointed to a document. The 1880 census for Worcester includes enumerator notes, informal observations in margins. Look at this entry. Linda read aloud. O'Sullivan family, Irish immigrants, father deceased, mother Margaret O'Sullivan, laundress. One child, male, approximately age 3. Child has mismatched eyes, one dark, one pale. The words echoed in the quiet room. O'Sullivan, Marcus said. Irish. In 1880, Irish immigrants faced severe discrimination in Massachusetts. Dr. Rashid nodded. The Know Nothing movement was still influential. No Irish Need Apply signs were common. Irish families lived in specific neighborhoods, worked specific jobs, faced constant prejudice. For an Irish child to be raised as Protestant Morrison, that would have been extraordinary. She laid out more documents. Margaret O'Sullivan appears in city directories as a laundress from 1878 to 1881. Then she vanishes. No death certificate, no further records, just gone. And the child, Linda asked, also disappears from Irish community records in 1881. The same year, Thomas Morrison appears in the Morrison household. Dr. Rashid pulled up a photograph of Worcester's Irish neighborhood from the 1880s. Narrow streets, crowded tenements, laundry hanging between buildings. Margaret lived 6 blocks from the Morrison home. Marcus studied maps. Walking distance, close enough for Eleanor Morrison to have employed Margaret for laundry. That's my theory, Dr. Rashid said. Eleanor would have hired local laundresses. She would have met Margaret, seen the child with distinctive eyes. Then Margaret disappears, and Eleanor has a new son. Linda looked at the photograph again. What happened to Margaret? Did she die? Give him up willingly? I found something else. Dr. Rashid opened a leather journal. Eleanor Morrison's diary from 1881. Patricia found it and brought it in. Most entries are routine. But listen to this, dated April 3, 1881. She read, I have made a decision that Henry opposes, but which my conscience demands. A child should not suffer for circumstances beyond his control. The boy deserves safety, education, opportunity, things his birth cannot provide. I will give him these things. I will give him our name. God forgive me if this is wrong, but I cannot believe love is ever wrong. Silence filled the room. She took him, Linda said softly. Eleanor took Margaret's child and raised him as her own. Dr. Rashid turned pages. 3 weeks later, Thomas is settling in, though he still wakes crying for her. I tell him his mother loved him, that she wanted him safe. I hope someday he understands. Crying for her, Linda repeated. Margaret was alive when Eleanor took him. This wasn't adoption after death. I need to find Margaret O'Sullivan, Dr. Rashid said, and understand why a respectable Protestant family would risk their reputation to raise an Irish immigrant's child. In 1881, this would have been scandalous. Dr. Rashid's breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A historian researching Victorian medical practices contacted the museum after reading about the Morrison case online. She had information about Worcester City Hospital from the 1880s. I've been digitizing hospital records from 1875 to 1885, Dr. Ellen Kozlowski explained via video call. I found something that might relate to your case. April 1881, a woman admitted after violent assault. Irish immigrant. Name, Margaret O'Sullivan. Dr. Rashid felt her pulse accelerate. What were the circumstances? Dr. Kozlowski pulled up a scanned document. The admission notes are clinical, but clear. Patient brought in by neighbors after being attacked by her employer, a man named Richard Dwyer, who owned a textile factory. She'd been working there doing laundry. Notes indicate severe bruising, possible broken ribs, patient in considerable distress. There's also this. Patient greatly concerned about welfare of young son, age 3, currently with neighbors. Linda, listening on speaker, leaned closer. Did she survive? Yes, but recovery took weeks. Look at what happened next. Dr. Kozlowski scrolled down. Note dated April 10th, 1 week after admission. Patient visited by Mrs. E. Morrison, who has offered assistance with patient's child during recovery. Patient reluctant, but has agreed temporarily given circumstances. Eleanor Morrison visited her, Dr. Rashid said. How would she have known about the attack? Marcus pulled up newspaper archives. Here, Worcester Evening Gazette, April 2nd, 1881. Small article. Irish woman assaulted, police investigating attack on Margaret O'Sullivan, employee of Dwyer Textiles. Woman currently hospitalized. Eleanor read about it, Linda said. She probably recognized the name. Margaret had done laundry for them. She went to help. Dr. Kozlowski continued. 2 weeks later, April 24th, another note. Patient informed that employer has threatened legal action regarding alleged theft. Patient distraught, fears imprisonment. Discusses with Mrs. Morrison options for child's care should patient be incarcerated. False charges, Marcus said bitterly. Dwyer attacked her, then accused her of theft to cover it up. Common practice, Dr. Kozlowski confirmed. Irish immigrants had little legal recourse. If Dwyer claimed theft, Margaret would likely be convicted. And if she went to prison, her son would go to an orphanage, Dr. Rashid finished. Or worse, Irish children in institutions faced horrific conditions. Dr. Kozlowski pulled up final papers. Hospital discharge, May 1st, 1881. Margaret O'Sullivan released. But look, patient's son, age 3, now in permanent care of Morrison family per mother's request. Patient departing Worcester to seek employment elsewhere, Mrs. Morrison has provided funds for travel. The pieces fell together. Eleanor hadn't stolen the child. Margaret, facing imprisonment and certain loss of her son to brutal institutions, had made an impossible choice. Give him to a family who could protect him, or keep him and watch him suffer. She gave him up to save him, Linda said quietly. Dr. Rashid looked at the photograph again, at Eleanor's hand gripping Thomas's shoulder. And Margaret? Did she survive? Dr. Kozlowski's expression was somber. I haven't found death records, but I also haven't found any trace of her after leaving Worcester. Patricia called the museum 3 days later, her voice shaky but excited. My granddaughter and I have been searching my mother's house, she said. Really searching, pulling up floorboards, checking behind panels. My mother always said there were secrets. We found something. Can we bring it to you? An hour later, Patricia and her granddaughter Jennifer arrived carrying a rust-spotted metal document box. Linda, Marcus, and Dr. Rashid gathered in the conservation lab. It was hidden in the wall of what used to be Thomas Morrison's bedroom, Jennifer explained, behind loose boards near the fireplace. The house has been in our family since 1900, when Thomas bought it. The box was tucked into the chimney cavity. Dr. Rashid carefully opened the box. Inside lay several items: a small child's shoe, worn and patched, a wooden toy horse, crude but lovingly carved, a pressed flower, and beneath everything, a letter sealed in wax. The wax seal was cracked with age. Dr. Rashid carefully broke it and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was unsteady, unpracticed, someone barely literate forcing words onto paper. She read aloud, To my son, if you ever read this, my name is Margaret O'Sullivan. I am your mother. You will not remember me, but I remember every moment with you. You had mismatched eyes like your grandmother, one dark and one light. People said it made you look strange, but I thought it made you beautiful. I am giving you to Mrs. Morrison because I cannot keep you safe. A bad man is trying to hurt us, and I have no way to protect you. Mrs. Morrison is kind, and she promised me you will have a good life, with schooling and food and safety. She promises to love you, and I believe her. I wanted to keep you so badly my heart breaks into pieces. But I love you more than I want you. Do you understand? I love you more than I want you. So I am letting you go where you will be safe and happy. When you are grown, and if you ever learn the truth, please know I thought of you every day. I worked hard and saved money hoping someday I could see you again, even from far away, just to know you were well. I never stopped being your mother even though another woman will raise you. Your first word was bird. You loved watching them. I hope you still do. I hope you have a beautiful life. I hope you are happy. I hope someday you forgive me. Your loving mother, Margaret O'Sullivan, May 5th, 1881. The room was silent except for Patricia quietly crying. He knew, Linda finally said. Thomas found this letter. He kept it hidden his entire life, but he knew. Dr. Rashid examined the other items. These must be from his first 3 years with Margaret. Eleanor must have given them to him when she told him the truth. Patricia wiped her eyes. My grandmother, Thomas's daughter, told me something once. She said her father used to stare at his reflection, studying his eyes. She asked him why, and he said, These eyes are my mother's gift. They show me who I really am. I thought he meant Eleanor, but he meant Margaret. Jennifer pulled out her phone. There's something else. I've been researching Thomas's later life. He became a teacher, worked in Worcester public schools for 30 years. But look what he specialized in. She showed them a newspaper clipping from 1910. He taught at the Irish Catholic school. a Protestant man teaching Irish immigrant children. He went back to his community, Dr. Rashid said softly. Knowing his true origin, he chose to serve his people. Dr. Rashid spent 2 weeks following traces of Margaret O'Sullivan after she left Worcester in 1881. The trail was frustratingly sparse. A woman alone, Irish, moving through cities where records were poorly kept and immigrant populations were transient. She finally found a lead in Baltimore. A Margaret O'Sullivan appeared in city directories from 1882 through 1890, working as a seamstress. The address placed her in the Irish neighborhood near Fells Point. It's not definitive, Dr. Rashid told the team. O'Sullivan was a common name, but the timing fits. She left Worcester in May 1881. This Margaret appears in Baltimore in 1882. Marcus pulled up maps. Baltimore was a major destination for Irish immigrants. Large community, textile work available. She could have disappeared into the population. I contacted St. Patrick's Church in Fells Point, Dr. Rashid continued. They've maintained records since 1850. The archivist found this. She displayed a scanned church document dated April 1890. Death record for Margaret O'Sullivan, age approximately 40, occupation seamstress, cause of death, pneumonia, buried in the church cemetery. The mood turned somber. She died only 9 years after giving him up, Linda said quietly. Thomas would have been 12. There's more, Dr. Rashid said. The death record includes a notation. Deceased left instructions regarding savings. Sum of $47 to be held in trust for her son, should he ever be located. Son's name, Thomas. Distinctive feature, mismatched eyes, one dark and one pale. Marcus leaned forward. She saved money for him. For 9 years, working as a seamstress, she saved $47. Several months' wages, Dr. Rashid interjected. She was setting aside everything she could. And she never forgot his eyes, Patricia said, her voice thick. She described them exactly. She wanted to make sure if anyone came looking, they'd know they'd found the right Thomas. Jennifer asked the question everyone was thinking. Did he ever find out about the money? Did anyone tell him she died? Dr. Rashid pulled up another document. The church made efforts to locate the child. They sent letters to Worcester, to Catholic organizations, trying to find a boy named Thomas with heterochromia. But Thomas was living as Thomas Morrison, attending Protestant schools, his Irish origins hidden. The letters never reached him. So the money just sat there, Marcus said. For 30 years, Dr. Rashid confirmed, until 1920, when the church transferred unclaimed funds to charity operations. The notation says, Margaret O'Sullivan's trust, son never located, funds used for orphan assistance. Linda looked at young Thomas in the photograph. He never knew she'd tried to provide for him. Actually, Dr. Rashid said slowly, I'm not sure that's true. Look at this. She pulled up a church visitor log from St. Patrick's, dated June 1905. A man visited, asking about Margaret O'Sullivan's grave. The priest's note describes him. Well-dressed gentleman, approximately 24 years of age, distinctive appearance with mismatched eyes, spent considerable time at graveside, left donation of $50 for church orphan fund in her name. The room fell silent. He found her, Patricia whispered. Thomas found his birth mother's grave. $50, Marcus noted. Almost exactly what she'd tried to leave him. He gave it back, in her name. Dr. Rashid smiled slightly. The priest's note continues. Gentleman visibly emotional. Asked if Margaret had left any message. Informed him of the trust fund. He seemed comforted to know she'd thought of him until the end. Patricia returned with one final box, Eleanor Morrison's personal papers from her final years. Among them was a sealed envelope marked, to be opened only by my children after my death. Eleanor had died in 1923, and her children had opened it then, but never shared its contents publicly. My grandmother kept this, Patricia explained. Thomas's daughter. She never showed it outside the family. But given what we've discovered, I think Eleanor would want the truth known now. Dr. Rashid carefully opened the aged envelope and removed several pages of Eleanor's elegant handwriting, dated January 1923, months before her death. She read aloud, To my beloved children, there is something you must know about your father, Thomas. He was not born to Henry and me, though we loved him as fiercely as any parents could. His true mother was Margaret O'Sullivan, an Irish woman of great courage and greater love. In 1881, I learned that Margaret had been attacked by her employer and faced false charges that would send her to prison. Her son, your father, would have been sent to an institution where Irish children suffered terrible fates. Margaret came to me in desperation, not begging for charity but asking if I would save her child. I had recently lost a pregnancy and was grieving. Henry was reluctant, fearing scandal, but I could not turn away from a mother's love so pure. We took Thomas, filed papers claiming him as our natural son, and raised him with every advantage our name could provide. I told myself we would return him when circumstances improved, that Margaret would reclaim him when safe. But circumstances never improved. Margaret disappeared into America's vastness, and I lost contact. I kept Thomas's origins secret to protect him from discrimination he would surely have faced. When Thomas was 16, I told him the truth. I showed him Margaret's letter and the belongings she left. I expected anger, rejection, hurt. Instead, he wept and said, "She loved me enough to give me away." How many children are loved that much? He made me promise to help him find her. We searched for years. By the time we found her grave in Baltimore, she had been dead for 15 years. Thomas never resented me for keeping him from her. He said I had honored Margaret's sacrifice by giving him the life she wanted. But I carry the weight of knowing that mother and son never saw each other again, that Margaret died alone, not knowing if her sacrifice had mattered. To Thomas's children, your father carried two identities. He was Thomas Morrison, with all the privilege that name provided. But he was also Margaret's son, bearing her love, her sacrifice, her Irish heritage in those distinctive eyes. He spent his life trying to bridge those worlds, to use the advantages we gave him to help those who shared his birth mother's struggles. I do not know if what I did was right. I saved one child, but could not save his mother. These questions have haunted me for 42 years. But know that I loved your father completely, and that Margaret's courage was the bravest act I have ever witnessed. With eternal love, Eleanor Morrison. The letter's final pages contained a carefully preserved photograph. A young Irish woman, perhaps 25, with dark hair and sad eyes, holding a small child on her lap, a boy about 2. The child's face turned slightly toward the camera, and even in the faded image, the difference in his eyes was visible. "Margaret and Thomas," Patricia said softly. "Before everything fell apart, Eleanor kept it all these years." Dr. Rashid's final research revealed something extraordinary. She had contacted St. Patrick's Church in Baltimore again, asking for complete records of donations to their orphan fund from 1905 to 1952. "Look at this," she told the team, spreading out ledger copies. "Starting in 1905, the year Thomas first visited Margaret's grave, there's an entry. T. Morrison, Worcester, $50 for orphan fund in memory of Margaret O'Sullivan." She pointed to the next year's ledger. 1906, same donation, same amount, same dedication. Marcus leaned closer, scanning the entries. Every year? Every single year from 1905 to 1951, 1 year before Thomas died at age 71. 46 consecutive years, $50 annually, always in Margaret's name. Dr. Rashid pulled up more documents. I also found visitor logs. Thomas visited her grave almost every year on the same date, May 5th, the day she wrote him that farewell letter. Linda calculated quickly. $50 in 1905 would be equivalent to over $1,500 today. For a school teacher's salary, that was significant. He prioritized it, Dr. Rashid said. No matter what else was happening in his life, marriage, children, economic depressions, world wars, he never missed a year. The church archivist told me the current priest still remembers finding these old records and wondering who this mysterious T. Morrison was who honored Margaret O'Sullivan so faithfully. Patricia wiped her eyes. He couldn't bring her back. He couldn't reunite with her in life. So he did the only thing he could. He kept her memory alive and helped other children in her name. Jennifer pulled up research on Thomas's teaching career. Look at his employment records. From 1903 to 1933, 30 years teaching at St. Mary's Irish Catholic School in Worcester. His personnel file includes a note from the headmaster. Mr. Morrison specifically requested placement at our institution despite higher-paying positions available at Protestant schools. He demonstrates unusual dedication to our immigrant students. He went back, Marcus said, to the community Margaret came from, the community he was born into. Dr. Rashid displayed photographs of Thomas from various years, 1910, 1925, 1940. In every image, his heterochromatic eyes were visible, unchanged. These eyes connected him to Margaret across death, across years, across the gulf of social class. The feature that made him distinctive, that Eleanor couldn't hide, that Margaret described in her final instructions, those eyes let him find his way back to her. She pulled up one more document. I found this in Worcester's education records, a recommendation letter Thomas wrote in 1930 for one of his students, a girl named Kathleen, applying to college. He wrote, "This student comes from circumstances that might limit others, but circumstances do not define destiny. I know this truth personally. Every child deserves the chance to rise above their birth, to build the future they envision, to honor those who sacrificed for them." Kathleen embodies this possibility. He was writing about himself, Linda said quietly. About Margaret's sacrifice, about Eleanor's choice to raise him, about becoming more than circumstances should have allowed. Patricia looked at the 1895 photograph again, at 14-year-old Thomas standing with the Morrison family, his distinctive eyes revealing and concealing his story simultaneously. He lived between two worlds his entire life, but he didn't let that divide him. He made it his strength. Dr. Rashid nodded. His eyes told his truth when everything else tried to hide it. And he spent 70 years honoring both the mothers who loved him, Eleanor who raised him, Margaret who let him go. 6 months after the investigation began, the Massachusetts Historical Museum opened a special exhibition titled Hidden in Plain Sight, The Morrison Family Story. The centerpiece was the 1895 photograph, displayed at high resolution on a digital screen that allowed visitors to zoom in and explore every detail. Daniel Chen, a high school history teacher, stood before the display with his class of 11th graders. He pointed to Thomas Morrison's face, to the heterochromatic eyes now known throughout the historical community. This photograph hung in a family home for over a century, Daniel told his students. People looked at it countless times, but no one saw the truth hidden in those eyes until modern technology made it visible. What does that tell us about history? A student named Maria raised her hand. That we miss things when we don't look closely enough. That people can be right in front of us, but invisible. Exactly, Daniel said. Thomas Morrison lived his entire adult life as a respected educator, a Morrison by name and privilege, but his eyes told a different story, a story of an Irish immigrant child, of a mother's impossible choice, of two women who loved him enough to sacrifice everything. The exhibition included all the documents Dr. Rashid had uncovered. Margaret's letter, Eleanor's confession, church records, donation receipts. Visitors could follow the entire investigation, seeing how one distinctive physical feature had unlocked a story spanning 70 years. Patricia attended the opening, now in her 90s. She stood with Jennifer, watching visitors engage with her family's story. "My mother told me the truth was in the details," Patricia said. "She knew. Thomas must have told his children before he died, and they passed it down as family secret. My mother wanted me to bring that photograph to the museum because she knew someday someone would look closely enough." A young Irish-American woman stood before the photograph, tears streaming down her face. She was reading Margaret's letter, the words of a mother losing her child to give him a better life. Dr. Rashid joined Patricia and Jennifer. "We've been contacted by genealogists, historians, journalists from around the world. Thomas's story resonates because it shows something true about immigration, class, the choices people made to survive. But mostly, it's about love. Complicated, painful, imperfect love." Linda approached with news. The Irish Heritage Foundation wants to create a scholarship in Margaret O'Sullivan's name. They're calling it the Margaret O'Sullivan Morrison Scholarship, honoring both her Irish heritage and the Morrison family who raised her son. It'll support Irish-American students pursuing teaching careers. Patricia smiled through tears. Margaret would have liked that. She saved money for Thomas her whole life, and now her name will help others get the education she wanted for him. Marcus had created an interactive display showing Thomas's adult life, his 30 years teaching Irish immigrant children, his donations to St. Patrick's Orphan Fund, his quiet work bridging two communities. Photos showed him at school, surrounded by students, his distinctive eyes visible in every image. One photo from 1935 particularly struck visitors. Thomas, age 54, standing with a class of first-generation Irish-American children. The caption explained that many became teachers themselves, spreading education through communities previously denied it. As the exhibition concluded, Dr. Rashid gave a closing presentation. This investigation began with a simple question. Why didn't historical records mention Thomas Morrison's heterochromia? The answer revealed a story about identity, sacrifice, and invisible barriers that shaped lives. Margaret O'Sullivan couldn't protect her son from poverty and prejudice. Eleanor Morrison couldn't reunite mother and son before death separated them. Thomas Morrison couldn't live openly as both O'Sullivan and Morrison. None got the perfect ending they deserved. But Thomas found a way to honor both mothers and both heritages. He took the privilege the Morrison name gave him and used it to serve the Irish community his birth mother came from. He carried Margaret's memory through annual donations and grave visits. He lived Eleanor's values by dedicating his life to education. And his eyes, those distinctive, mismatched, impossible-to-hide eyes, ensured that eventually someone would look closely enough to see the truth. She clicked to the final image. Thomas's face centered on screen, his heterochromatic eyes looking directly at viewers across 130 years. History hides in plain sight, Dr. Rashid concluded. In photographs that seem ordinary, in eyes that tell stories, in families that loved despite the world's attempts to divide them. Our job is to look closely, question what we think we know, and tell the stories that need telling, even when they've been hidden for over a century. As visitors filed out, many paused for one last look at Thomas's eyes, seeing in them not just a genetic quirk, but a bridge between two worlds, a testament to two mothers' love, and a reminder that the most important truths often hide in the smallest details. Patricia placed her hand on the display screen, touching Thomas's image. "Your eyes told your story when everything else tried to hide it," she whispered. "Margaret would be so proud, Eleanor would be so relieved, and you would be happy to know the truth finally came out." Outside, spring sunshine illuminated Boston streets where Irish and Protestant, immigrant and native-born had once lived in separate worlds. Those divisions had shaped the Morrison family's story, forcing impossible choices and lifelong separations. But standing in the museum, watching diverse crowds engage with Thomas's story, it was clear that some bridges, once built with love, last forever, especially when built by eyes that refuse to hide the truth.